Hey, Facebook friends, if you're seeing the smokiness, no, it's not your imagination. That is the fires that are coming in from nearby. And the reason why I wanted to take a moment to share that with you here on Labor Day is because there are certain people that don't get to have the day off on Labor Day, such as all the firemen and women that are out there fighting these fires in the nearby valley. But what I also wanted to posit is just this simple idea. And I don't know why I don't hear it on the Republican side and why I don't hear it on the Democratic side, but it's just, and I admit I'm not the smartest as math, but I've been saying this for years and I don't understand why it's not being taken seriously, which is, why do we constantly battle over our minimum wage as a set number when we're always going to have inflation, we're always going to have ups and downs in the economy? Why can't the minimum wage be set as a percentage? Because that would allow for when there's inflation and we don't have to have this fight every so many decades over re-upping it, and it's always long past due when it should have been increased. If we have a percentage set and we vote that it's always that percentage, then as we end up having inflation, guess what? People will not have to work multiple jobs to be able to put food on their tables. People will not have to be stressed and juggling, depending on healthcare versus, versus their food on the table versus their mortgage rent. We could all be living in a much more realistic financial situation, because that would allow us to recognize every single human being that is a citizen within our country deserves a wage that they can actually pay their bills with without all that stress. So I'm just positing forward because to me it's so logical. Why can't minimum wage be a percentage? Because that could be the difference between why some of us are blessed to be here taking vacations, riding gondolas up, and others of us are still today working their ass off and not getting the appreciation and the support they need as they're fighting under terrible situations, such as in Dallas right now. You still have the Joppa community with holes in their rooftops. You still have people out in San Branch that don't get water to access. You still have other areas that have food deserts. And much of this could be solved without charity if we simply gave people a minimum wage that was based on a percentage of whatever our economy is doing. It allows for inflation. That is simply logical and would allow us not to fight this battle year after year after year, decade after decade, century after century. The only reason, in fact, that I can think of for us not to be talking about that is that there are people that don't want that to happen, that there are people whose wealth is predicated on keeping the masses in a certain dire situation. But if we allowed ourselves to have a minimum wage based on a percentage, then that would allow us to navigate as a whole, as a country, in a much more logical, informed, strategic way onto the centuries ahead. And yes, it would mean some hardships. Yes, for people like me, it would be difficult to be able to attain maybe as many people as I work with and give as many programs as we do. Perhaps there would be less programs, but perhaps it would allow people to not need as many programs. For example, Food Source DFW, it was already doing about 1,500 families a week were getting food, but now doing this crazy administration, this crazy 2020 year, the pandemic and everything, it's been like 5,000 families a week. But many of those families actually are extremely educated. They actually make good money, but many of them are still struggling so hard. And some of those families, that are educated and make good money typically, guess what? They are still paid minimum wage because of whatever job they do, that's what it offers. So we need to start looking at things as if it was the 1950s, where if you had a master's degree, you're probably going to be making a six-figure salary and you'll be okay and you'll pay off your student loan within the first decade of your adult life. No, that's not the way it is anymore. But if we were able to give people a minimum wage that was based on a percentage of how the economy's inflation is going, then guess what? We wouldn't have so many people needing to stand in line for food. We wouldn't have so many students fighting so hard to pay off their what they owe for their education. We would be able to solve so many things. And this wouldn't necessarily be a progressive versus a conservative thing. This would just be a logical thing. So anyway, Want to thank today on Labor Day everybody that works their ass off to provide the life that we are blessed to have, from the food on our tables to the people that are risking their lives cleaning and cleaning in ERs after other people. I mean, if we really think about all those people who are, cleaning the hallways, cleaning the sheets of all the ERs around the country, they're risking their lives too. If we look at, all the people that are still going around, massive crowds because they have to, they're risking their lives for the rest of us to have an economy and food and things that we rely on. So as one of the many people who's privileged to get to rely on the work of so many others, I sincerely thank you for what you're doing. And as someone who's privileged to be able to have a vacation like I am right now, I want to, inhaling all this smoke from the safety of my room, I want to again thank all the firefighters, not just here in Colorado, but all over the country that are fighting fires and don't have this day off, ER people who don't have this day off. And yes, to the policemen and women who are good people, who are not committing racist acts and who are standing up for change, I want to thank you as well. And for all those of you who are in the Poor People's Campaign, to those of you who are Black Lives Matter, I want to thank you for standing up for change. I really believe that we're in a nation where you don't have to choose an either or. We can support good police, good firemen, good ER people, and we can support those who are demanding that change happen. Because talking about the good old days of the 1950s and 60s wasn't the good old days for a lot of people. It wasn't for people that looked like me or people that were Black or people that were Asian. But if we move forward as a country, we can uplift each other if we start really recognizing the value that each other are putting into this beautiful world that we've wanted to create for so long. No, it's not a utopia. No, it's not everything that our Constitution has promised us, but it is a commitment on the part of all the people that are part of the United States to try and work through our concentrated labors to make this a better world. So whether you are conservative or you're progressive, I want to thank you for whatever you might be doing out there to make your part of the world a better place to be. And happy Labor Day. Thank you to everyone, seen and unseen, who works so hard to give us a beautiful world that we live in. And for all those of you who so rarely get a thank you, this is a shout out of a major thank you to you. And again, please think about it. Whether you are conservative or progressive, please think about it. Wouldn't it make sense to have a minimum wage that was a percentage that allowed for inflation to occur and wouldn't require us to debate specific dollar amounts every time it does occur? Wouldn't that be logical? So, food for thought on this Labor Day. Love to you all, and thanks to everybody out there who's working so hard to improve the world we share.